Let's go. Welcome to another opportunity for our Coffee and Tea podcast. Hi, everybody. This is Chris, and I just want to welcome you guys to our Friday episode. This one's going to be a little different. We've kind of had a lot of lighthearted topics over the last couple of weeks, and this time, um, just in light of a lot of things that have been going on, a lot of things we've seen across the social interwebs and things like that, I thought it was important for us to talk about grief and trauma. And in that, we're talking about it beyond just kind of the usual scope that we think about it. Typically, when we talk about grief and drama, we talk about it with regard to like losing a person. But I want you to expand your minds just a little bit more, just beyond a loved one. Have you ever lost a job? Have you ever lost a pet? Have you ever lost a home? Have you ever lost yourself? It's just grief goes beyond just the one individual and can encompass so many other things. So, in exploring this topic, I have some friends that I am going to bring on so that we can talk about it just a little bit more. So I'm going to bring them in, and they are the Allens. They just happen to be married to each other. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, guys.
Hey, hey.
Hi. So I'm Karen Allen, and this is my husband, Tony Allen. And so together we co lead, along with a group of fantastic grief support ministry team members, what we call this bereavement support ministry at New Creation Christian Church. That's our local assembly where we fellowship. So it various losses over the years that drew us to this level of ministry, recognizing the support that people need during times like this. And so we wanted to delve into it a little bit more, go into training, and then being able to pour forward the support that pulled us through when we went through challenging times.
Mhm. And I'm Tony Allen. This is my wife here, Karen. And yeah, like she said, we were drawn into because of our own losses, and also just my background is a little bit counseling, and this is happening a lot. So we thought it would be best to get trained and go forth with it. Our pastors encouraged it. They uplifted us and supported us totally. Um, and yeah, we were trained by the Roberta's House, which is
Okay.
very good in regard to grief work, bereavement, um, as was our team. Everybody on our ministry has been trained by Roberta's House. So we are equipped, and we've had a couple of uh, session seminar with in-house as well as over
Mhm.
here. The thing on the screen.
Oh, yeah, Zoom.
Zoom. Thank you. Zoom. Zoom. Ah,
I was
Generate.
like, what thing on the screen? You got something crawling over there?
Technology.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you guys told me something I didn't know. I didn't know you guys were all trained by Roberta's House. So I found out something new today.
Hmm.
And so with regards to your training in this kind of area, does your training really prepare you for like dealing with the level of grief that people have that you encounter?
Well, I think what it does is it gives us a framework in which to work. It gives us boundaries. It's like the borders of a puzzle. We know what to do and where to put the pieces, but it really can't prepare you totally for each person's or each situation.
Yeah. Recognizing the uniqueness, although they're common threads, recognizing the uniqueness of everyone's
Yeah.
grief journey, but recognizing that it is a journey.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then since you guys are talking about the uniqueness of everybody's situation, I know when we typically talk about grief, like I said in the intro, we kind of always talk about when we lose a person. Um, and not negating that that's any greater level of loss than like losing a pet or losing a home. But do you find, or first of all, have you guys encountered losses of other kinds outside of people? And then in that same vein, are the levels of grief any different when you lose something like that versus losing an individual?
I think there's still similar levels and similar stages, if you will.
Mhm.
Maybe the magnitude is a bit different, but it's still a loss. There's still a mourning process, and then there's still a grief. And so sometimes what we as individuals tend to do if we're not careful is rank losses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you only lost a chicken, but I lost 5 dogs, and so I feel it more. Well,
Right, right.
you can't equate, you can't really calibrate someone's level of grief because it's their own based on what that item, that relationship, that whatever that loss is, it impacts them in a way that is real to them. And that
Mm-hmm.
real loss should be acknowledged, should be validated, and then strategies for moving forward.
Yeah, and like Karen said, you can't really put a value on it. You know, somebody says, "Oh, I lost the job." Okay, well, great. Look at the Wanans get another job. What's the problem? You know, that you may be grieving that as much as I might grieve our pet of 20 years or a cousin or a mother. They might be grieving that job. So yeah, you can't. We can't really put a value on their loss.
Because it's so much deeper than what that specific loss is,
Mm.
what it represents in your life. It's the space that it filled in your life that is now voided.
Okay.
So it's a matter of learning how to cope and how to move forward in spite of, how to
Right.
grow around it.
And
Okay.
I guess the irony of ironies is that the one constant in life is change, but it's the one thing that humans are just have a difficult time dealing with.
Yeah, we
And
don't like.
right, it's a change. You've lost something, and so we respond to it.
I think COVID sort of drove a little bit of a fervency in this area
Oh
as far as
yeah,
moving us toward it and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
launching to become a little more vocal with it
Hmm.
because people were experiencing multiple losses. They were experiencing not only the loss of loved ones, but they were grieving the loss of lifestyles, loss of interactions,
Yeah.
loss of what they had become accustomed to in terms of their routine.
Hmm.
So many ways and so many things that we lost. And still, it's changed us in a way that our entire society is yet to fully recover from all that we suffered in the midst of this pandemic.
That was a shift. That was a
Our
paradigm shift.
children interact with each other differently. Our our whole
Being.
scope of our whole scope of relating has changed.
Yeah.
It's
Most
expanded in
definitely.
some ways in terms of social media, but maybe we've lost some things in terms of the interpersonal interaction
Absolutely.
because of it.
Yeah, 100% agree. I remember being at the airport, and at the time I was in Atlanta. So, it's the busiest airport almost
Yep.
in the world, 90,000 people, accustomed to bumping into people walking through the hallway. And then you go from that to, I literally could stick my hands out and walk around. And it,
Wow.
it felt weird at first, but then as it went on, it almost, gave you a sense of hopelessness because it's like, when is this going to be any different? And
Right.
I can imagine, losing all of that stuff. And then on top of that, losing the sense of normalcy that we
Right.
were, so accustomed to and how drastic that can be.
Mm,
So
absolutely.
craziness. So in my research in trying to get prepared for the topic, I found out that there, according to some studies, are 5 different stages of grief. And this was just one particular study, and it said that it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Is that kind of an accurate, widely known acceptance, or is it kind of vary according to individual and process?
Well, that's one model, and it's probably the most widely used or has been widely accepted over the years, the Kubler-Ross model. And what we've come to find over the years and in really researching how people grieve and how people respond to loss, it became apparent that it is not clear cut at all, that the stages are not step by step, but instead it's more like a spaghetti model where it's all mixed and mingled, and you might come in and out of the various stages at various times. And it's anticipated, and other times it's just totally unexpected. Sometimes we make reference to the grief sucker punch when you didn't expect to feel it, but you find yourself in the thralls of it.
Okay.
And then there's models that embrace sort of a sort of a spiral. You go around the spiral from the place of loss to the place of recovery and acceptance by spirals. It's like you go in and out of it. Each time you come out of it, you're a little closer to the healing that you're hoping to achieve. And each time in that cycle has a purpose in the healing process.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Keebler-Ross was a linear model at first, but as time went on, they realized that people wax and wane. They go from one to the other. They may not go in a linear. They may skip from anger all the way down to depression, and go back up to acceptance and go wax and wane. So yeah, it's a
Okay.
cycle. Yeah.
Okay. Which makes a lot of sense. Because you're dealing with the initial shock of it all, and then as life goes on, you kind of go on, and then
Mhm.
certain things are very what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of bring you back to the sense of what the loss is. So I can imagine it being up and down and up and down.
And
Um,
just an example of that, my father, who is going on 5 years that I lost, we lost our family. He used to like Marie Callender frozen food dinners. And the first time that I was in the supermarket and saw that, it the phrase now is triggered. It's like triggered, like, oh heck. And then a few times I think parents said, "Oh, Marie Callender is on sale. You want some?" Like, no, no, no. And so yeah, anything can kind of trigger and take you back to that place. You know.
yeah.
Yeah. So the main focus in any type of work in this arena is just recognizing the differences and giving people the space to feel where they are,
Right.
to
Yeah.
feel the feelings, and then to find constructive ways
Hmm.
to go forward. And so it's not a matter of getting over it, or it's not a
Mm,
matter of boxing in time frames or parameters, but it's feeling where they are and then moving on to better and better. And so it's like the pain and the loss never really goes away, but it does become a healed place within you that you can push past. So you move on in spite of and you grow around it, but the place is always there. And sometimes you visit it intentionally with that grief work, and then other times you bump into it
Hmm.
unexpectedly and you find yourself right back into that place.
Right.
So,
And in our training, we did learn the different stages. Grief is work. It is a process that we have to go through. Just like exercise, you can either not do it and be out of shape, or you can go through the work of grief and kind of do it in a healthy manner. So it's the process of healing and recovering that you work through the positive way. And yeah,
mm-hmm.
you're going to cry, you're going to be upset and tear and all that, but you're also going to work through it. So it's grief work.
yeah,
and
feeling
and
it,
I think you guys have said two really good things, and I think as those of us who try to help individuals when they're grieving, kind of misstep a little bit. And Sister Karen, you said something about time and how grief doesn't really have a time limit. Um, and Tony, you said process, so that there's always something that you're working at as you are healing. So first question is, when it comes to time frame, does anyone ever really stop grieving? Is there, like, I've grieved 5 years and 5 years should be enough, or I'm going to grieve until I'm 55 kind of situation?
Hmm. Well, the answer to that is, I guess, from an absolute hit or miss, 0 or 100 framework, you don't ever stop grieving,
Okay.
but you get better, and what you did 5 years ago shouldn't be what you're doing last year. It shouldn't be the same intensity. It shouldn't be the same frequency. And if you're stuck there, then you need some some assistance, you know. And people do grieve at different times. There's no real time frame. And the thing is, are you getting stuck? It's almost like a batter. Well, here we go. A baseball batter being in a slump. You know, Gunnar Henderson is 0 for 20. Well, he needs some help, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's rut. He's stuck. You know, you have grieved the same 10 years ago as you are now, with the same intensity, the frequency, the sleeping, the same degree. You need some help.
Mhm, mhm. And another part of why there's no time frame is because you grieve different aspects of the loss.
Hmm.
For instance,
That's good.
as it relates to my children and grandchildren, and in the loss of my first husband, and we're talking 20 plus years ago, you grieve
Mm,
every new birth that they don't see. You
Mm.
grieve every event that they don't get to participate. You grieve the fact that
mm,
the younger set don't get to know and appreciate the personality and the beauty of that person's life, except what you bring alive for them. So it is continuous because
yeah,
it's a new loss every time you experience it.
right, right.
There's the grief of it.
Yeah,
But again, the intensity should remain the same. I shouldn't feel stuck or in the haze that I was in 20 plus years ago, but you still feel it.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, and then we talk about process, and we see one model, one set of steps that individuals can go through when they grieve. You said there's another cyclical kind of model that people can go through. When it comes to process, are you have a for Alcohol Anonymous, you have like a 12-step kind of a program where you can gauge where you are by what step you're at. Does grief or dealing with grief and trauma have the same kind of step situation?
Well, in general, um, sort of, kind of, a little bit. In other words, they define mourning as your reaction to the loss and the outward expression of the process of letting go.
Okay.
So if you're crying because you just heard someone you lost, you're mourning. Grief is the process of beginning to let go and recover, to get better. So that's the process. You might mourn the initial loss, and then you might grieve, and then you have some different stages that you go through, um, getting back to normal sleep habits. You want to look at those types of things: eating, sleeping, concentration, work, and it's that process. It's a very general process. It's not as discrete and distinct as 12 steps.
Okay.
It's about maybe 4 or 5 steps that you're generally looking to improve on: mourning, grief, and then the work, and then getting slowly, usually, back into the process. But I like the fact that you said you can grieve anything. People can do this with their job that they may have been at for 20 years. We can do it with the loss of a house. You're right.
Hmm.
We go through the same process.
That is
Status. You
expectations, hopes.
Yes.
yeah. failing
And
a course in school. I mean, you can grieve a whole lot of stuff. So
man, listen, the very first time I got an F, oh my gosh, you would have thought that I had just lost. Comparing it to what I know, you'd have thought I'd have lost a whole person
yeah,
because it was
life was over.
the first time, not me, and then it was high school. I gotten all the way to the 12th grade and gotten an F.
Mm,
Now,
yeah,
granted, it wasn't the
absolutely.
last one I got, but still, the fact that I can still remember that, and I remember how much it hurt. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling
it.
you, craziness.
Yeah.
I still feel that F a little bit. So, is there, with regards to the process, like you were talking about, um, are there spaces where, again, comparing it to the only thing that I know, which is like a 12-step program, um, are there victories that individuals who are going through like these grieving processes should celebrate?
Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of, again, back to the intensity, the way when the anniversary date comes around, am I experiencing it now the way I experienced it 5 years ago? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe now I have other healthier coping strategies where I
Right,
can remember some fun things, or I
right.
can do something as a tribute or commemorative act, and then I'm able to heal another level and then move forward another level.
Yeah,
And then another increment and a healing in itself is reaching to help someone else, maybe the someone that is where you were 5 years ago, that you can now begin to speak to, encourage, and pour into and pull through,
Mm-hmm.
being a support for one another, kind of, as we like to say, turning the pain into purpose and
yeah,
Okay.
finding a new place, that energy.
yeah. So if the person you lost like to volunteer at soup kitchens, so now you can help supply the soup kitchen or the homeless shelter. If
Okay.
they were if they like pets, then maybe you get to the point where you volunteer at the animal shelter, giving back. And like Karen said, and it's a spiritual principle. Give and it will be given back to you. So you give out what you know and it helps you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even people who have become activists in in the area of, like, say, cancer research or violence prevention or MAD or
Hmm.
mothers of murdered sons or different functions like that that you hear of in a social respect. In many cases, that's somebody's healing work and healing
Mm,
journey
Yeah.
mm.
that's going forth that they're using as a coping mechanism and using as a strategy and a tool.
And like COVID, we have this fentanyl epidemic that literally have taken people out very quick. So we have this same process of as you said, the 12 steps and celebrating and giving back. There's a lot of foundations and grants and stuff that have been started
Mhm.
because of the loss of someone from drugs
Mm-hmm.
or overdose. So yeah, giving back and it helps them heal. They still feel it, they still are affected by it, but each year they're giving back and they're helping others. So yeah.
Okay. Well, you touched on it, so we're just gonna segue right into it. When it comes to grief and our faith walk, if I am grieving or experiencing grief, does that mean, or yeah, does it mean that my faith is weak?
Mm. Well, that's a good one.
Because I've had friends that have grieved things like how much time you got, uh
Yeah, yeah,
that have had that experience where they've literally said, I shouldn't really be feeling this way because my faith is so strong. I don't understand. I feel like I'm failing God because I'm going through this level of grief.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'll start, and I'm sure Karen will add in. God gave us grief. I mean, He gave us the process by which to heal. He gave us faith. He said, cast your burdens upon me. So he gave us this process. He gave us an endowment to love other people. And so when those people are removed, we feel that loss. He gave us the process. So therefore, no, your faith isn't weak. Your faith isn't wrong. You're no longer a Christian and all that. I think the problem is we put our humanness into his divinity and we mess it up. Be strong, get over it. Oh, they're old anyway. So, we put our humanness on it and we mess up God's process, and the reality is his process works.
And what I'm encouraged about in many aspects in the church now is that the church is awakening
Yes.
to the
Yes.
whole person and recognizing that we are spirit.
Right.
We live in a body, but we have a soul, and that soul has the capacity to feel pain and loss.
Yeah.
And so as we awaken more as the church, we realize that it takes more than just the laying on of hands, just to, bring somebody in for prayer and expecting that when they get up, it's already healed. So maybe they're on their way to the healing process because of the prayer, and thank God for the prayer and someone to stand with you. But your psyche still has to heal. The soul man still has to heal. When your heart has been torn, and in some cases, it's like in the case of a marriage where the hearts are intermingled and you're one, it's almost like a ripping of that heart, or like a Velcro of the heart. And so of course those pieces are going to be there and they have to heal. And it takes the time and the process for it to heal, and the pouring in of the oil. So it's definitely more than just praying it away, but it's working through it as well.
And our words matter. I mean, God spoke the world into existence. So speaking helps people, just generally speaking, and then speaking words of affirmation and speaking healing. And I'll share with you, when my father passed, people said different things and the pastor said different things, and everything was, it all helped. The church helped. But I'm going to share what Brandon Gray, he shared something on Facebook that generally just blessed me. He said, "I'm sorry for your loss and I hold sympathy for you. Never forget, because your father will always be in your heart, never lost." And so years later, I'm looking back at that and I'm saying, man, Brandon, thank you. So you never know what part of the spiritual walk will help someone. And it might just be your presence, Jehovah Shammah, the God, just present. You don't do anything. Just sit there and shut up,
Sometimes we struggle with what should we say? What should we say?
Yes.
Well, sometimes just being there, just listening, validating their feelings, being there. Right. But then there are some what nots to say.
Yes. So I think that's something that we really should talk about, because I think when someone's, just in general, when people are hurting and they're people that we like, or people that we love, or people we encounter all the time, especially when it comes to folks that we fellowship with on a regular basis, folks that we work with every day, we have a tendency to feel like we have to say something. And I think sometimes we stick our foots in our mouths when we're trying to find something to say, and then we end up saying the wrong thing, and then wonder why they don't want to talk to us no more.
Yeah. When we're on the receiving end, we
just
have the grace to realize that people mean well.
Yes.
And to be able to let things that are uncomfortable roll past us. But sometimes we tend to minimize what people are feeling because we want to make ourselves feel better by having the right thing to say.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, and it's some of those cliches that, oh, God needed another flower in his garden.
Can I tell you, if no phrase gets on my nerves.
Oh,
And be careful when you say, I know exactly how you feel.
Because you don't.
You don't.
Because you don't.
You know, especially if you haven't experienced that loss, you know. So somebody who has lost a father, you know, I kind of know what you might be going through because I lost my dad, you know. But if you haven't, then don't do it.
And even if you have, it may not be the same relationship or the same
Yes.
in your life because maybe you didn't deal with your father on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Maybe your relationship was different with him.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you're grieving his loss, you're also grieving what could have been or grieving the wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's relationship and their loss as a result is different. So grief is
Mm-hmm.
a result of love. But then there's also a thing of like we talk about relationship loss. And when you talk about, like, for instance, I'll use my own one example when I was speaking to someone who lost a spouse and having had that experience myself, expressing sympathy for them and support for them. I'm sorry for your loss. Their response was, "Oh, I'm not. That sucker needed to go." I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. You have to do this to be coming your way or what?" But it's not always the same because
Yeah.
not everybody's relationship is the same.
And let them process it. You know that those are times when you feel like going splat up against the wall. You know, like whoa. But then you know, use an open-ended question. Okay, so how do you feel about that? You know, really?
And
You
it
know,
could be that
let
that's
them get it
where
out.
they are in their grief place. Maybe
Right.
that's the anger phase. They're mad that the person left
Right.
because it's irrational. It doesn't make sense. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
know in your mind, in your intellect, that this doesn't make sense, but yet it's the way I feel because this is my psyche. This is a different realm.
Right. And it's about them. It's not about you. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. No, because I don't want you to feel that way.
Right.
No,
Right.
you need to love your no.
Don't cry. Be strong.
Yeah, be strong. Be a man.
Oh
Be
my
strong.
God.
God never makes mistakes.
Yes. Or,
Well,
you know, God takes people sometimes because, you know, or trying to tell someone, especially in the space that they're in, you know, well, God's got a lesson for you to learn, you know, in all of this. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he had to take somebody from me or take something from me in order for me to learn a lesson.
That's right.
And even if big picture wise that's true, that's not the thing
No,
that they want to hear in that moment.
That's
yes.
right.
I had somebody say to me at the funeral, like, "Well, your next husband, this." I'm like, "What? Wait,
Ma'am,
what?"
I ain't even
Oh,
got over this yet. What?
at the funeral.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
yeah. So people
Yeah.
mean well.
Yeah.
People mean well, but
Uh,
sometimes those words can cut.
yeah, I don't know. That comment, I don't know if that was a mean well kind of comment, but yes. Oh, yes, Miss Pat. That's a good one too. God needed another angel.
Yes.
No, he
Yeah.
didn't. He got enough of them up there.
Right. Right. And we don't exactly convert to angels when we
Right.
cross over.
Read your Bible. Read your Bible.
God needed another angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we look at, Minister Kristen, is are they improving? You know, uh, they might be in the house for a whole week. Well, okay, 3 weeks later, are they getting out 2 days a week? They might not have eaten for 2 weeks. Are they eating one meal a day? You know, and again, grief is work. Grief is beginning the positive improvement, and when we do that, we there is a process for grief work. It's acknowledge the loss, experience the pain, and then adjust the environment without your loved one. So
Mm.
you know, we lost Piper, our dog of forever. You know, so we acknowledge it. It's like, yeah, he's gone. You know, I think I hear little tappings on the
Little
in the,
feet.
but it's not. And then we experience the pain. I miss Piper. I miss him at the top of the steps, looking down when I come in. But we adjust without him. Now, granted, humans are obviously much more valued than the dog, but it's the same process of
For the loss,
acknowledging,
yeah.
experiencing the pain,
Mhm.
and then adjusting to life without that entity.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that's good for people to understand too, as far as like warning signs that you have to pay attention to when people are grieving. I think to your point when you said, is are they getting out of the house? I think sometimes, once we've been told about the loss, and I'll just use, since it's very familiar to people when we lose a person, you have the funeral, and everybody tends to be around you all that time. From the time that we acknowledge or know that there's a loss, with the planning of the funeral, with the adjusting, people come to the house and bring you food for 2 weeks, and your refrigerator looks like a place where a bomb just went off because there's enough aluminum foil in there to send signals to aliens in 5 different galaxies from now. And people continue to do that until the funeral, and then maybe a couple weeks after that, and then people disappear,
Yeah,
because I think in our minds we're like, okay, you should be over it, or in a
right,
place where you're good. Now
right,
we don't have to, and then we don't pay attention to the person anymore,
right.
and they
Yeah,
haven't gotten out. They're in the same set of clothes that we left them in 60 days ago.
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
And the funny
So
thing, yeah, life goes on. I mean, the world keeps turning, but they're, for lack of a better term, stuck. Maybe
mhm,
not stuck in a bad way, but still, like you said, grieving and going through. And that's when a real friend's got to call and say, "Hey, what's going on? How you feeling? You know, hey, you want to catch a movie, or hey, there's this, just check in on them, see how they're doing."
yeah.
And you're right, the people stop coming, the food stops coming, the cards stop coming, everything kind of stops, and then you're sitting in the house looking at TV and upset or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's something about us, those of us that aren't experiencing the grief, that we try to timetable it, to say, okay, well, I think I've helped enough, or I think
Exactly.
I've, said enough, that,
Exactly.
that's no longer my focus. I'm on to the
Next.
next thing,
Right.
and not really thinking about the fact that, the person is still going through something,
Mhm.
Yeah.
no matter the level. And with that, my next question is it okay for people to ask God why?
Yes. It's okay to ask God why. God, our God wants to heal us. He wants us to be better, and it's okay to ask. It's okay to be angry at God. It's okay. God, look, God can handle it.
Mhm. Mhm.
God can take it. And the thing is, we have to go through that process of uh, settling it with God ourselves. He would rather us ask,
Mhm.
you know, why, and be angry with him than to abandon him. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to ask why.
Mhm.
Good,
And
because
then
I.
to be angry, because sometimes we're afraid to be angry, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes acknowledging it, even
That's
in
right.
fear and trepidation, God, I'm kind of upset with the way you did that. I didn't expect you
No.
to do that way. That wasn't the way I envisioned this thing playing out.
Yeah,
But
Mm-hmm.
that's when he can work, when we bring him our real,
exactly. Right.
when we bring him our real, and he
Cast
can
all your
begin to deal with it.
cast all your cares on him. He understands. He can get through it. It's okay to be angry. And again, it's a process. He already knows, you know, and you just don't want to get again stuck in being angry at God
Mhm.
for years,
Mhm.
you know. So yeah, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset with God. Um, plead to God. It's okay. He gets it.
Mhm.
Heck,
Okay.
he gets it better than we do.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears just a little bit, because I think, for lack of not saying it, we could have been this whole time talking specifically about how adults kind of
Mm.
deal with grief and that whole process. When it comes to kids and teens, is the process any different? Are there things that we should be looking for in our kids and teens that we don't necessarily look for in our adults?
It actually, the process in many ways is similar, but their response and behaviors may be different because maybe they're less mature in how to express them. And so maybe it expresses itself in bedwetting for maybe a younger child, or maybe it expresses itself as acting out in school or not being able
Mhm.
to, like they go from an A student to suddenly a CD student, something's going on and they can't express it. But it's coming out in other ways, it's oozing out. And it's
Mhm.
Okay.
one of the things that even whether adult or child, if it's not dealt with, it can come out in unhealthy ways, or the individual will find unhealthy ways of coping with it, masking it, or self-medicating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't add much more than that. Yeah, they're going to act out in different ways, and they're going to possibly, as they say, regress. So you might have a 12, 13-year-old wetting the bed or doing something that they did when they were 7 or 8. You know, grades are always a very good overall indicator of how kids are doing. So if those grades just suddenly drop, then something isn't right. Now, you might expect them not to have a good report card, maybe a semester or so, but that should gradually increase. Are they doing their regular activities
Mm-hmm.
that they normally do? You know, are they getting back to it? Are they quiet? You want to talk to their friends to see how their friends are doing or how their friends perceive them, the teachers, church, the youth leaders,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep a gauge on them. Exactly.
And
Because they, especially small kids, because they haven't quite reached the developmental stage of fully understanding exactly what happened.
Okay.
You know, them it's like out of sight, out of mind, and where are they? And then is it my fault? Did I do something?
mm,
You
Mm.
know, I caused dad or mom or grandma. Did I do
mm-hmm.
it? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm. Kids have an amazing superpower of finding a way to blame themselves when things go south in
Mm-hmm.
any arena.
yeah,
But the challenge too is getting them to express it in healthy ways. They may or may
right,
not. Sometimes you have enough of a rapport with them that you can get them to verbalize, but then there might be other ways that they can
yeah,
express it and
yeah,
heal. For some, it could be journaling.
mm-hmm,
For some, it could be art,
mm-hmm,
some other artistic expression, just
right.
Okay.
Telling a story to you, um, writing a picture, you know, that kind of thing. But again, just like adults, you got to check in on them, see how they're doing, you know.
let them know
Um,
you care. Let them know that you're available, that the door is
mhm,
open when they do feel like talking.
Mm-hmm.
mhm. But be real, you know, don't sugarcoat it to the extent of a lie or something, you
Mm.
know. Be real with them, you know. Oftentimes I've heard apostles say and a pastor and different things, you know, when do you tell a child what they want to know? Oftentimes it's when they ask the question, you know, they ask the question and you got to explain it to them on their level
On
of
their level.
Yeah.
understanding, you know. Case in point, my father never talked baby talk to us. And truly, I don't think I actually understood my father till I was like 5 years old, because he used to just use 10-syllable words and all that. If it wasn't for my mother, I probably would not have understood a word until I was 6. So,
Wow.
you know, he just always talked to us like we were adults or we were teenagers and had some higher IQ. But that's what he did, you know. Um, all that to say, you know, talk to them on their level so they can understand. You know, don't use 12 and 15 syllable words that confuse them.
For the 5-year-old, right?
That's
Unless
right.
they're at that reading level, then you can talk to them, like they're Tony Stark or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, when it comes to positive ways of coping with the grief, are
Mm,
there what are some of the positive ways that you guys have seen or suggest when you talk to individuals in the bereavement ministry?
Hmm. I would say one is to um, make holidays and special occasions, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Christmas, New Year's, birthdays, anniversaries, make it special. Do a celebration, do an acknowledgement. Don't just let it pass by like a pie in the sky and say, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. Because the reality is you feel it. And now we have to put something, I've heard Pastor Brian say this too, put something in that place that's going to celebrate the person, acknowledge the person, affirm the person.
Often people are tipping around on eggshells around each other because, well, I don't want to make them feel bad because I'm thinking about it. Well, chances are they are too. And it just gives you an opportunity for those feelings to be expressed.
Right.
One thing we emphasize too is self-care.
Self-care.
Giving yourself the space and the grace.
That's right.
To pamper yourself, to take the time you need, to recognize that it takes energy to grieve.
Yep.
That your body is going through changes, that you're in a heightened state of alarm because of the trauma that you experienced. And so giving yourself the grace and the understanding that because of that state of alarm and because of all of the work that it is on your body and your psyche, that it can be very tiresome. So give yourself the grace. Don't fill up your calendar, don't fill up your agenda so much that you don't have time to just sit and be.
So self-care, pamper yourself, acknowledge, celebrate is a way to cope. Another way to cope is talk to individuals about it. Call your friend that you've known for 20 years and say, that date's coming up, or this is coming up, or this is how I'm feeling. Let's get together for lunch, or, let's get together and do something. Talk to them.
Okay.
And get it out.
I think those are awesome ways, because I think, to your point, everybody's feeling it.
Yeah.
Gotta replace necessarily. I guess replace is a bad word. Figure out a way to shift what it is that you're experiencing to be able to aid yourself in that healing journey versus figuring out a way to stay stuck in it. And I think that's the other piece too. I think sometimes, at least in the spaces where I've grieved and I can talk about it. There was my fiance at the time passed away. And though we were no longer together, when he passed, you would have thought that we were married. The way that I had to kind of deal with that. Now, every time his birthday comes around, I have to remember, not that I forget his birthday, but just trying to figure out what's still there.
Right.
That, I'm sad. I'm still upset. Like, it didn't have to happen this way, kind of a situation. So trying to do something that reminds me of him, that helps me to still be able to process, that whole thing, and not just sulking in it and staying in that same space. So yeah.
A big part of that is just acknowledging that it's there and that you're feeling it, whether you feel like you should be feeling it or not.
Or not. Yeah.
It makes sense.
They're not right or wrong. They are.
Yeah.
And also just do something, I don't know what the word is, mindless, do something ridiculous, do something, if you want to sit down and watch the Three Stooges all day, do it. Or go out to the National Zoo, do something fun. Even if you don't, I don't want to say even if you don't feel like it, but if you can push through and do it anyway, it's part of that self-care, and it's part of saying, I got to take a break.
Okay. And my last topic, when it comes to this, people tend to grieve by themselves. And especially in the church, though it's taking a turn, when we talk about therapy.
Mhm.
You know, the Holy Ghost does work and prayer does work, but Jesus and therapy goes together.
There you go.
Um, how often should we, when it comes to this whole grieving process, seek therapy?
Hmm. I would say, and again, we would have to look at those measures of grief work. Are you making progress?
Mhm.
And is it affecting your day-to-day activities? Is it affecting what you normally would do? Then you want to consider seeking professional help.
Mhm.
For example, if it's okay not to eat, you know, my appetite is upset, I'm a little down
Mhm.
because of the thing,
Mhm.
but if it's going on 6 months and you're still not eating, not sleeping, not bathing, you know, you can't focus to the degree of getting from here to the store, you know, then we got to seek professional help. In
And-
addition to God, you know,
Mhm.
if you broke your arm, whoops, if
Mhm.
you broke your arm, you would go to the hospital. Yes, you would get prayer and you would say, you know, Karen, pray for me, Minister Kristen, pray for me, let's get some oil, and you know,
Mhm.
but the bone has to be reset
Mm-hmm.
medically. So the same with mourning and grieving. You know, we're going to pray. We're going to support you. We're going to pray for you and encourage you and spiritually uplift you. But you might have to get professional help from seasoned professionals who could be a pastoral counselor. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be a psychotherapist, psychiatrist in the world. You know, it could be, or it could be a Christian psychiatrist, you know, but you need professional help when those things happen. Just like a broken bone, it's, you know,
Mhm.
it's not going to work unless you get professionals to help you.
When you're
Yeah.
angry to the point where you can't keep a job because you want to fight everybody because you haven't dealt with your grief, that you're still mad at the situation, but you're taking it out in physical
Right.
way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's three spheres. There's
Mhm.
your personal life, your work life,
Mhm.
and then your routine activities. And if those are kind of out of whack to the degree other people are noticing, you know, hey Tony, you know, you haven't shaved in 6 months. What's going on with you? Or whoa, you know, when was the last time you took a shower? You know, that kind of stuff. I know it's funny, but it's real.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
then we need professional help, and they need somebody to tell them that. You know, I'm going to suggest this, but just be aware that we may need to talk to somebody. Why don't we go and talk to Minister Chris or Pastor Brian or Tony or Karen or somebody so we can kind of help you along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be gentle. Not what the heck is wrong with you coming up in here like this. You know,
You never know what people are going
you
through.
never. Yeah.
Yeah,
How
and you
close
don't want
they
to
are to it.
trigger them any further. You know,
Right.
kind of situation. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, but
So,
there's wonderful community resources available too.
Absolutely.
We mentioned Roberta's House earlier. They have groups that are gender specific, that are age specific, that are
Yes.
okay.
trauma specific, that are loss specific. So
Good point.
they are
Excellent.
very, very helpful in terms
Right.
of finding people that can relate to what you're going through.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, men, we grieve differently. We just do. So there's a group that Roberta's House is called Mold, and it's for men who are grieving.
Mhm.
You know, they have teen groups, they have
Mhm.
everything. And I don't feel less of a helper if I refer you to somebody who can do it better than me. You know,
Mhm.
so
And I think that's important, especially for men. Um, we find that men don't really get an opportunity to allow themselves to be emotional and feel. You know, society says and calls them names because they're being feminine, or you know, however it's packaged, so they tend to keep things in and you know,
mhm,
wait until it explodes, and then
right.
everybody around them gets upset because it's like, why can't you handle your emotions? well, you told me I was a punk because I was crying, or whatever terminology they use nowadays.
That's
Um,
right.
so I think that that's a good resource to point out, and for us to share, because it does give men an outlet to be able to deal with and to share those emotions with other people, other
Mhm.
men, that are going through some of the same experiences. Do they? It is you. I think you said they have groups for kids as well.
They
Yep.
do. They even have a youth camp.
They do have a
Okay.
youth. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. The kids that are going through. Because as we know, Baltimore has a very high youth violence rate.
Yeah.
Those young
Mhm.
people are.
Mhm.
I hate to bring it up, but they're going through some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Yeah.
of the numbers that you hear as far as violence and murder. That's somebody's dad. That's somebody's mom. That's somebody's
Somebody's
brother.
son.
Somebody's son. Somebody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And Roberta's house,
Perpetuates.
very good
Okay.
resource. This house. Yeah.
Okay. And then we can plug our own resource. So if they wanted to get in touch with the bereavement ministry and New Creation, how would they do that?
So the best way is to connect through the New Creation Facebook page, the New Creation website. You can even call
Mm-hmm.
the church at 410-488-5650. I'm sure they love that. But also they can refer to us and then we can
Mm-hmm.
follow up.
Absolutely. And understand that like you said, Chris, we don't have to tell everybody. It's not like, first of all, I'm not technologically IT literate first,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to broadcast the fact that you want to talk to somebody. It's going to be handled with
Confidence.
confidence and integrity, um,
Mhm.
confidentially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's with us as a resource, as a church, as well as Roberta's house, as well. I think both entities have had quite a bit of experience in dealing with grief and loss on all levels, and have really worked on making sure that information that is given to them or people that have reached out, um, pieces of it remain confidential, that it's okay to talk to us. We talk between you and the person that it is that you're talking to. It's not broadcasted across social media, or you won't walk into the church on Sunday and people are like, "Ooh, that's that person that Sister Karen told me about." It's none of that.
Mhm. Even when we
So
do the group sessions,
Yeah.
there's group parameters so that it's a safe space for people who want to
That's right.
share to
That's
their
right.
comfort level.
Yeah. And we are going to be having some more sessions and some more interactions in
Mhm.
house group because there's
There's
some
healing
loss.
in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
amen. And we'll be able to, as the coffee and tea entity, when that information is made available, we'll be able to post that information to our website as well. Just because we have a lot of viewers who may not necessarily be connected to our church, but will be able to use that as a resource, or be able to pass that resource on to their family and friends as well. So we're always happy to be another broadcast space for folks that get
And
connected to any resource.
Mr.
Mhm.
Chris, I just like to thank you because this is a tough topic. It really is. And I thank you for coffee and tea and getting it out there to folks. And hopefully they can tune in. If they didn't catch it today, catch it next week or
Mhm.
tomorrow. And
Mhm.
thank you for bringing out some
Mhm.
very important information. We appreciate that.
Very much so.
I,
Very
I,
much.
I appreciate you guys for jumping on and being the folks to kind of have this conversation with me. As a person, though I've experienced some level of grief in my life, it's different when you experience it versus trying to gain an understanding of how individuals process it and how people cope with it. So not having a whole lot of knowledge around it, I appreciate that you guys are resources, and that you were willing to be helpful and have this conversation, with me. So it's been a good one, and probably won't be the last, because grief never goes away. So it probably will have this again later down the line. Hopefully, we'll be able to get the whole team on. So we'll be able to have other voices and different perspectives in that conversation as well. So before I let you guys go, there's always one question that I ask all of my guests, and you have to be able to let me know is, are you a coffee or tea person? And what is it that you drink?
It's coffee for me, for sure. It has got to be a bold brew, solid coffee, but with flavored cream. So bring it
Okay.
on.
Yeah. I'm grieving right now over which coffee. Let's see. It's coffee for me, and people at work make fun of me because my cup is like huge, and yes, it has to be flavored. It has to be some type of and bold,
Yeah.
like Karen, bold and strong.
I'm telling you, the coffee people are winning on
Well,
this show. I mean, I feel like I've only had like two guests on here for tea. So
I think it's a seasonal thing.
is that what it is?
It has some medicinal qualities, but
Okay, well, we'll see. Look, even Miss Pat, not you too now. I at least thought Miss Pat was gonna be with me with the tea, and she didn't betray me too. Look at this. Look at
Good.
this. So again, I really do appreciate you guys for coming on. I tell people all the time, any topic that you see that you want to jump in on, please feel free. You're always welcome as a guest. For those of you that have watched with us, whether you're watching live or you watch on the rebroadcast, I am always happy to know that these shows are actually getting out there and are helping people, whether it's helping you get a laugh or providing you with some information that you may need, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someplace down the line. Someone that you interact with may need that information, and you'd be the good resource for them to have it. In 2 weeks, at the end of the month, we will be doing yet another show, and it's going to be the Podcaster's Manual. So I'm going to have a lot of my friends that all have podcasts. So we'll be talking about what it looks like, how we come up with content, and being able to balance podcast life, regular life, and work life. So it's bound to be a laugh riot. So please make sure that you tune in. But until then, please stay healthy. Please stay out of trouble, most of you who are watching. Feel free to share the broadcast across your own social media platforms. Give it to somebody who you may think still might be grieving or might need some help getting through the process, and be able to share some of the resources that we've shared here tonight. So we'll see you next time on the Coffee and Tea Podcast. Thank you guys so much again, and we'll see you then. Have a great night.